Our Law and Justice segment tonight, the New York Times refuses to use the term female genital mutilation because the phrase, they say, is too culturally loaded. According to one of the paper's top editors, using the phrase widens the divide between the Western world and people who follow the right. Instead of saying female genital mutilation, the paper says it will use the term genital cutting. With me now, founder of Act for America, Brigitte Gabriel. Brigitte, thanks for being here.
I'm delighted to be with you.
All right, Brigitte, talk to me about this. The New York Times says the term female genital mutilation is too culturally loaded. My question is, culturally loaded with what?
Exactly. The scary thing is, if we in America today cannot talk about mutilating young girls, where else can we talk about it? This is the land where women who have the freedom need to stand up and talk about this issue. And this has nothing, this maybe has a little bit to do with culture, but it is based in Islamic religion. You do not see any Arab Jews or Arab Christians who immigrated here from North Africa or the Middle East genitally mutilating their daughters. This is strictly done in Islamic cultures in general, and we are seeing it done today in the United States and across the Western world by Muslim and North African immigrants who come from Islamic backgrounds who are genitally mutilating their daughters, and it's about time we start talking about it in the United States.
Right. I mean, it's about time. I don't understand why we sacrifice, and I guess when I say we, I mean feminists in America here, perhaps not excluding, or perhaps not including myself in this, but why we sacrifice the safety and the security, even the autonomy, if I can take a term from American feminism here, of little girls to protect the idea of Sharia law here. That doesn't seem to make any sense to me whatsoever if our goal is actually to protect little girls.
Well, here's the deal. For the last 16 years, ever since we had 9/11, the left has been so married to protecting the image of Islam in general. They don't even want to confess that it is a political movement cloaked in religion. So they are so married to defending the image of Islam that they are not even willing to criticize the bad aspects of their religion that tied to a radical ideology, lest they don't even want to touch it. They don't want to even get near it. And this is why we are seeing an alliance being built between the left and Islamic radical organizations in the United States who are basically using the left to advance their radical Islamic agenda, which include the use of Sharia law in the United States. Look, Liz, we have documented over 143 cases where Sharia law was used in the United States in an American courtroom in 22 states instead of the Constitution of the United States. So what we have seen happen in Europe for the last 20, 30 years, we are starting to see here in the United States. And as sad as it is to know that in America we are having girls who are genitally mutilated, I am so glad that we have arrested 3 doctors who have been basically charged or convicted of having cutting young girls, 7 years old and 9 years old, genitally mutilating them in the United States, because it forced Americans to start looking into this and hearing about it, and it started the conversation going, and we need to continue the conversation.
Right. It's absolutely shocking that 500,000 little girls, that's 500,000 little girls in our country across the nation, have either been subjected to this type of abuse, this type of torture, or they're at risk of being subjected to this. And I don't think it's any coincidence that these 3 doctors that you talk about who were arrested, that they all practice at least some form of the Islamic faith here. I mean, that's the type of culturally loaded that the New York Times editor is talking about. I do want to bring something up, though. This topic of female genital mutilation, there have been other programs that have covered this, but they're very delicate about covering it. Even other conservative programs are very delicate about it. They don't want to talk about exactly what happens because they're worried about offending viewers. And I do want to be respectful of viewers, but I want to ask a really tough question, Brigitte. Why does this happen? Under Sharia law, why do they do this to little girls?
To control a woman's sexuality and to increase her rate on the marriage markets. Remember, in Islamic cultures, a woman is a product to be sold, to be owned, to be purchased, to be traded, and to be exchanged. And this is why it increases a girl's value on the marriage market when she is genitally mutilated, because that means she's not going to be promiscuous, she's not going to have any sexual drive, and she's not going to play around with guys, which will protect the honor of the family. And that gets us into to honor killing and honor violence under Islam, because obviously we have heard about honor killing. We have seen honor killing in the United States. And as you can see, again, this is not cultural. You do not see Arab Jews and Arab Christians who immigrated from North Africa and the Middle East killing their daughters or their wives or their sisters because they dishonored the family, because we do not consider the honor of the family is between a woman's legs. But under the Islamic religion and Islamic cultures, they do. So when you genitally mutilate a little girl, you ensure that down the road, your honor will not be soiled by her either falling in love with a man that you don't approve of and marrying him, or being seen out in public with another man, or being too westernized. This way you will ensure that she is pure and clean and has no sexual drive, and she will be a submissive wife to you, and she will not stray.
Right, and I mean, I'm going to take it even one step further. This isn't just something to deprive these girls of sexual gratification. It actually makes sexual intercourse painful for these girls, so they don't want to do it now or in marriage. They only do it when their husbands dictate that they do it. But Brigitte, let me get this straight, because again, bringing it back to the politics in America, we have liberal politicians, we have the feminist movement here that is telling us that the thing that we should value most as women is our sexual autonomy, our sexual gratification. They go even as far in propping this up to say that Republicans who don't support abortion are actually sexually oppressing women. So that's their stance on one side. But then on the other side, when there's actually a sect of people, there's actually a demographic of people who are oppressing women's sexual autonomy, women's sexual gratification, because they're so politically worried about offending Sharia law, they don't speak up.
Exactly, and that's the scary part. It doesn't make sense. When you look at it, you scratch your head and you say, this is so contradicting. Where do they really stand? But then again, because they do not want to touch such an explosive issue with Islam, that's why they do not want to talk about it. And we must address this issue, because that's exactly what it is. It is oppressing girls. It is controlling a woman's sexuality. And not only her sexuality, Liz, but yeah, this has such ramifications even after the marriage, after a woman gets pregnant. It is a nightmare. In order for her to have a child, she has to undergo surgery, and if she doesn't undergo the surgery, she will rip and may lose her life, and then she has to be stitched back. There is so many ramifications to this that people do not want to talk about it. People are uncomfortable hearing about it, but this is an issue that we must face as a nation, because right now it's happening here in the United States, and it's happening to American girls born and raised in the United States to immigrant parents that came here. And the issue is only growing and rising in numbers with the rise of Islamic immigration to the United States.
Right. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's not just about sexual autonomy or oppression here. It's about the health and safety of these little girls. And it's about the dignity of these little girls. I mean, they're taken away by their families. They're told they're going on a girls' trip. They're told not to tell anybody else, and then they're taken into these dark little clinics. The curtains are pulled, and they're mutilated. Their genitals are mutilated without anesthesia here. And just to bring this back to basically where we began here at the beginning of the segment, when the New York Times refuses to use a term like female genital mutilation in favor of just saying genital cutting, to me, that's actually insulting to the women that are victims of this, because this is something that happens just to females because they're females. Yet the New York Times wants to take away the word female as if it's just something that happens in general. But actually, this puts little girls at risk. Nobody will talk about it. Nobody will speak up. I'm glad you're speaking up, Brigitte. I'm glad some other high-profile women are speaking up, because we need to. These little girls' safety is in our hands.
We are, and I encourage people to go to our website, actforamerica.org, and get involved. Join us in standing up and fighting for these little girls, and fighting against the spread of Sharia law and these customs that are not compatible with our Judeo-Christian culture. We welcome immigrants to our country, but as long as they come and they abide by our Constitution and they adopt our laws, if they are not willing to adopt our laws and live equally as Americans under the Constitution, then they should consider immigrating to another country. This is something so important that we stand up for now and fight against before we go down the same path as Europe.
Right, and I would just encourage our viewers to, when you're going to the ballot box, make sure that you check. See if your representative to Congress, your senator, your local government officials, see if they stand up for women, if they really stand up for women. Not if they support Planned Parenthood, if they stand up for these little girls that are being mutilated. Brigitte, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
All right.